what if you could just, permanently opt out?
Oh, wow. Opt out of everything?
Yeah, seriously, like take a moment and just think about it. What if you could permanently escape what we call the program of the secular world?
I mean, the sheer exhaustion of modern life makes that sound less like a fantasy and more like this deeply ingrained human yearning.
Exactly. No more lying awake at 2 a.m. worrying about making rent. No more stressing over how you're going to afford care for your aging parents or, like, save for your own retirement.
Or even just dealing with the crushing weight of modern loneliness.
Right. The constant low-level anxiety of just trying to survive in this hyper-competitive society. What if you could check out of all that permanently and just hand those burdens over to someone else?
We all have those moments where the sheer volume of daily logistics just feels,
Yeah.
insurmountable. So a master reset button is incredibly seductive.
And that exact yearning is, well, it's the foundation of the fascinating source text we're jumping into for today's deep dive.
Yes, the second home document.
Yeah, we are looking at excerpts from a document titled Be Always Grateful, The Culture Building of the Second Home. It's by an author who goes by the name Shuifeng.
And this document, it really serves as both a philosophical and a practical blueprint for a very radical intentional community.
Right, where the followers are referred to in the text as Chanyuan celestials, and the community itself is called the Second Home, or sometimes the New Oasis for Life.
So our mission today is to unpack the mechanics of this blueprint because, this text doesn't just offer a physical escape from the secular world.
No, it goes way further than that.
It does. It proposes a complete psychological rewiring of its inhabitants.
Yeah.
The author makes this very bold, very specific argument that a utopian life is entirely possible. But, yeah, it hinges entirely on one single, non-negotiable human emotion.
Gratitude.
Unwavering, absolute gratitude.
So we are going to examine why the author believes that gratitude isn't just, a fleeting feeling or some polite social construct, but actually the absolute load-bearing linchpin for this entire utopian structure.
And to understand why gratitude is treated as a matter of communal life and death here, we really first have to look at what this second home is actually providing its followers.
Right, because the promises laid out in this text are staggering. I mean, the document explicitly states that the community steps in and takes total charge of, and I'm quoting here, food, clothing, shelter, transportation, living, aging, illness, and health.
Just think about the massive infrastructure required to deliver that promise.
It's wild.
It is a cradle-to-grave social safety net taken to an absolute extreme. The text specifically highlights that members no longer have to toil or, drain their brains worrying about supporting the elderly or raising the young.
So the nuclear family's traditional burdens are completely absorbed by the collective.
Exactly. Imagine taking the heaviest financial and emotional weights you carry right now and just setting them down at the front gate.
And it extends deep into your social and romantic life, too. Like, the text promises that work is simple and free from being overloaded with trifles.
Which is a lovely phrase.
Yeah. And it says that because you are surrounded by a multitude of sisters, brothers, and lovers, you are never lonely.
It even guarantees free and open love.
Right. Claiming that this environment completely removes depression, melancholy, and distress. Okay, let's unpack this. It basically sounds like an all-inclusive, permanent resort for your entire existence, where you check your worldly anxieties at the door.
A permanent resort, yeah. What's fascinating here is how the author describes the ultimate goal of this existence. It's about achieving a state of having nothing and at the same time possessing everything.
Having nothing but possessing everything, that is quite the paradox.
It's the core paradox of the second home. The text tries to justify this by arguing that the anxiety of individual ownership is what actually makes us miserable in the secular world.
Because we suffer from the stress of acquisition.
Exactly. Getting the house, chasing the promotion, hoarding resources to protect our own families against a rainy day.
Right. So by demanding the total surrender of secular individual ownership, which is the having nothing part, the community grants you access to collective security.
Which is the possessing everything part.
Right. You don't hold the deed to the house, but shelter is permanently guaranteed.
You don't hoard a private savings account for health care, but you are cared for when you fall ill. The text argues this structural change fundamentally alters your psychological baseline.
It even claims to solve existential dread. Like, it says you get a stage to fully exhibit your personality and talent, so you don't have to worry about your potential being wasted in some dead-end job.
And because you are totally removed from the secular economy, You don't have to deal with the intrigue, the scheming, the cheating that inevitably happen when people are aggressively competing for scarce resources.
Because removing scarcity theoretically removes the need for scheming.
Right. You are provided with a guide to lead you, which eliminates the anxiety of forging your own path or constantly questioning your life's purpose.
So Suvasanka sets up this grand proposition of total care and then asks the followers a very pointed, almost rhetorical question. He asks, what else do we want?
What else do we want? It sounds so final, like putting a bow on the perfect human existence.
But you can't build a utopia out of people who are still secretly bringing all their worldly baggage with them.
No, you definitely cannot.
So the text quickly pivots from this frictionless environment to a massive warning about human nature. It declares, gratitude is the primary element for the sublimation of the quality of life. And Shufeng capitalizes the word life.
He uses the word sublimation here in a very specific, deliberate way.
How so?
Well, he's talking about taking raw, base human instincts like greed, envy, or the desire to dominate others and channeling them upward into a refined, productive communal frequency.
Ah, okay.
Shufeng is essentially fighting a preemptive war against hedonic adaptation. He knows the treadmill is inevitable.
Right, the hedonic treadmill.
Yeah. No matter how utopian the setup, the human brain is wired to normalize its environment within a few months and immediately start hunting for flaws.
So true. So even if you never have to pay rent again, give it 3 months and you'll be furious about how someone else folded the communal laundry.
Exactly. And the text aggressively warns against this, saying, man should not be greedy. It asks, if you live in this amazing environment and you are still unsatisfied, still finding fault with everything, when does it end?
Or, as he puts it, when does it end? And the author lists these incredibly specific, dire consequences of what happens when that gratitude vanishes.
What kind of consequences?
The text warns that without it, individuals develop an unsatiable desire. They become lazy. They get a bee in their bonnet.
Be in their bonnet.
Yeah, that's the translation. They start feeling superior, believing others owe them. They complain, they attempt to control and hold others in sway, they sow discord, and they hurt their lovers and siblings with harsh words. Here's where it gets really interesting to me. If this place is a perfect utopia that provides literally everything, why is the author so focused on the threat of complaining and laziness? It almost sounds like a manager dealing with everyday workplace HR problems.
What's fascinating here is how it shatters the illusion that this is a magical resort that cures human flaws just by existing.
Right.
Think about your own office or household. These are just standard interpersonal frictions. The text implicitly admits that environmental perfection does not equal psychological perfection.
You can strip away the mortgage payments and the grueling commutes, but the human ego's desire for status survives perfectly intact.
Exactly. Simply providing material needs and removing secular burdens doesn't automatically erase our tendency to get bored, or our urge to control our neighbors, or our habit of complaining.
Which brings us to the core utility of gratitude in this community. It isn't just a polite feeling here.
No, it is the vital, mandatory operating system required to keep the community from collapsing under the weight of human nature.
Because without it, the text implies, the community would just recreate the exact same intrigue and scheming of the secular world, just on a micro scale.
Gratitude serves as the community's primary firewall against the human ego.
Right. So if ingratitude is the virus that threatens the community, what exactly does the cure of perpetual gratitude look like in daily practice?
The text spends a significant amount of time mapping out a direct causal link between this internal state of gratitude and the external reality of the community.
Yeah, Shufeng outlines exactly how this firewall operates. He argues that with a sense of gratitude, an individual gains a clear consciousness and mind.
They stop asking for too much.
They stop staring at other people's shortcomings. They cease trying to impose their will on others or restrict their freedom.
They stop being jealous, and they don't lose their temper when facing setbacks.
Let's dig into the actual mechanism there. How does gratitude biologically or psychologically stop something as potent as jealousy?
Well, jealousy requires your brain's spotlight to be fiercely focused on what someone else has or what you are lacking.
Yeah.
Gratitude forces that spotlight onto what you have been given. It is cognitively very difficult to hold a state of deep appreciation and a state of bitter envy simultaneously.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So all the positive outcomes listed are specifically geared toward reducing friction between individuals.
It's about shrinking the self to make room for the collective. By actively maintaining gratitude, a member is actively suppressing the impulses that cause conflict.
They're making a continuous conscious choice to focus on the collective gift rather than their own individual grievances.
Exactly.
Wait a minute, though. There's one specific line in this section that really jumped out to me and created a massive contradiction.
Oh, which one?
The text claims that with gratitude, you will not feel the poverty and hardship of life.
Yes.
But wait, didn't the text just spend the first half declaring they have achieved the state of possessing everything? That the community has entirely solved food, shelter, and illness? Why would they need a psychological tool to ignore poverty and hardship if poverty and hardship were truly eliminated?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that phrase is the tell. That is the moment the text briefly lifts the veil on the actual physical reality of the second home.
So it's not a luxury resort?
No, when you pool resources and step entirely outside the traditional wealth-generating secular economy, you are not living in luxury.
Right.
The work might be defined as simple, but the living conditions, the diet, the lack of modern amenities, all of that might objectively look like poverty to someone observing from the outside.
So if you look at it with secular eyes, it's hardship. But if you look at it through the lens of mandatory gratitude, it's a utopia.
Perspective is reality. The community relies entirely on the psychological tool of gratitude to transform what might objectively be a very difficult, austere existence into a subjective feeling of possessing everything.
Oh, wow. So if you are grateful for a plain bowl of rice because you didn't have to compete in a cutthroat secular job market to earn it, then that bowl of rice feels like a feast.
Exactly. But if you lose that gratitude, the illusion shatters. It's just a meager bowl of rice, and you were just living in poverty.
It's essentially a massive cognitive behavioral therapy loop applied to an entire society.
And Shrefeng is surprisingly pragmatic about the difficulty of maintaining this loop. He writes, "Before we realize our ideals, we should always keep in mind that none of us is perfect, and we all need further sublimation."
He openly admits that people are going to mess up.
He does. He introduces tolerance as the necessary byproduct of gratitude.
Because neither we nor others are perfect, so we must forgive and tolerate each other.
But he explicitly anchors this tolerance, saying it derives from the gratitude in our soul.
You can't easily forgive an annoying roommate or a difficult coworker if you feel entitled to a flawless environment.
Right. But if you are constantly forcing yourself to be grateful just to be there, to have escaped the crushing pressure of the secular world, then overlooking a fellow member's flaws becomes much easier.
The gratitude artificially lowers the stakes of every interpersonal conflict.
But relying on pure psychological willpower to ignore a terrible roommate or a meager meal is exhausting over the long term.
Yeah, that sounds draining.
So to make this mandatory gratitude stick permanently, Swimming has to escalate the stakes far beyond the physical world.
And this is where the text shoots this concept straight into the stratosphere.
Yes.
This is where gratitude shifts from being a practical community guideline to a literal cosmic imperative.
The author claims that this sense of gratitude should become a core cultural characteristic, and that if a community has it, there will be no mountain of flame that we cannot climb across. There will be no difficulty that we cannot overcome.
The language shifts so dramatically here from that practical HR manager tone to something mythological.
It does. The mountain of flame is a classic literary and spiritual metaphor for an insurmountable obstacle or a period of intense purification and trial.
So the text is preparing the followers for hardship by framing their endurance as a spiritual victory.
Exactly.
And it goes even further, stating that gratitude can reach heaven and earth and human nature. And then it delivers this ultimate promise. It says, as long as we have the sense of gratitude, we will get the love from Buddha and the greatest creator.
The blending of spiritual traditions here is a brilliant structural move.
Yeah, seeing Buddha side by side with the greatest creator.
Right. The text isn't demanding adherence to complex ancient dogmas or, rigorous theological study, which can often cause divisions in communities.
It's keeping it simple.
Very simple. It takes all these massive, intimidating concepts of divine love and cosmic order and collapses them under one single, universally accessible umbrella.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
It's pitched as the ultimate life hack for enlightenment. Just be grateful over everything, as the very last line says, and eventually you will reach your ideal destination.
It makes salvation incredibly accessible, but it simultaneously places the entire burden of that salvation squarely on the individual's mindset.
Oh, right. Because if you aren't feeling the love of Buddha and the Creator, if you are stuck in a temporary plight or feeling miserable about your assigned chores, the text strongly implies it's your own fault.
Your gratitude is failing.
Wow. So the spiritual logic loops perfectly back to the practical control mechanism. If you are unhappy in the second home, it's not the community's fault. You just aren't grateful enough.
It's a closed loop.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started by looking at this incredibly seductive promise of the second home, this intentional community that attempts to completely remove the crushing burdens of secular life.
Offering to take care of your physical needs, your social needs, and ensuring you never have to face aging, illness, or loneliness alone.
Right. But then we discovered that the hidden cost of this total provision is the demand for total psychological compliance.
To keep human nature from destroying this fragile utopia from the inside out, Shuafeng mandates absolute gratitude.
It's deployed as an operating system to suppress the ego, to prevent complaining, to force tolerance of others' flaws, and to literally reframe objective poverty as subjective abundance.
And finally, it's elevated to a cosmic requirement, acting as the single key to unlocking divine love and overcoming any obstacle.
So, what does this all mean for you? Even if you have absolutely no intention of packing your bags and joining a radical, intentional community, this text serves as a profoundly powerful mirror for your own life.
It forces us to examine our own relationship with our daily circumstances.
Yeah.
How much of the stress and suffering you experience right now is a direct result of your objective environment, your demanding job, your bank account, the city you live in, and how much of it is actually a product of your own perspective and unchecked expectations.
The text argues, rather convincingly, that an ungrateful mind will find a way to be utterly miserable, even in a utopia.
It challenges you to consider whether you are carrying your own intrigue and scheming with you, regardless of where you go or what you achieve.
It really makes you wonder if you'd genuinely be happy having all your needs met, or if your brain would just find entirely new, highly specific things to complain about.
Like the communal laundry.
Exactly. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. The text makes a compelling case that gratitude is the ultimate tool for sublimating life and avoiding the toxic desire to control the people around us. But consider this. Can an emotion like gratitude truly be genuine if it is mandated by the very environment you depend on to survive? If expressing gratitude is the mandatory price of your food, your shelter, and your social standing, does mandating gratitude just become its own invisible, absolute form of control?
That is the ultimate paradox to ponder.
It really is. Thanks for taking this journey with us. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.